I think martial arts today, the average black belt that I produce today is probably better than the average black belt that I produced in 1982. Because what one person could do in 3 years, it may take somebody else 7 or 8 years. I'm not going to lower my standards, and someone that has, motor control, coordination problems, they may not be able to do it in 3 or 4 years, but there comes a point where they're going to maximize their potential, and that's okay. Both of you, one, helping us every 2 weeks, keep our school, and everybody needs a kick in the butt sometimes. And if you don't put yourself in a situation where somebody's going to hold you accountable, you're just going to flounder around. So thank you for that.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining the 7 Figure Secrets podcast. Your host here, Jennifer Waters. I'm here with my dad, Tommy Siegler, and our special guest today, Mr. Bill Taylor. Mr. Taylor, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, Jennifer. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'm excited because you are what we would call the old school, the OGs, the people who've been there, done that. I mean, we're talking starting martial arts in 73, been a kickboxing competitor, been traveled around the world, ranked as top 10 in the bantamweight division, went to France. You own 2 martial arts schools and a boxing facility. Yeah, we're excited to talk to you about your secrets to success. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you. You've been instrumental in my success, especially recently, so I'm glad to talk to you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and you have been involved for a long time in martial arts, kickboxing, now boxing. What got you started in martial arts?
I started in 1973, and I think a lot of people in that era, it was in 1973 is when Enter the Dragon was released. During 1973, the Kung Fu TV series was going on with David Carradine, and that was real interesting to me as an 11-year-old boy. Also, at the time, I was leaving elementary school, and I was going into a large, at the time, it was the middle school, and a lot of elementary schools from all over the county were coming into this one really larger school, and I think my parents didn't want me to get beat up and killed and bullied, so they were very high on me doing martial arts as well. So everything kind of just lined up perfectly for this to be something for me to start doing at about 11 years old.
So 11 years old is when you started. Has anything changed over the years as far as your interest in martial arts or what you've really focused on?
As an 11-year-old, you look at your sensei, he's a god. He can do anything. And, I've had some amazing senseis. 1973 was a long time ago. I think reality-based training has come a long way in 40 years, with the advent of the UFC and MMA. That's one reason that around the late 70s, early 80s, I wanted to get into kickboxing because I want to see, does this stuff really work? In tournaments, you always watch your control, and I wanted to see what it would be like if I didn't have to watch my control. So I guess what has changed a little bit in my interest is getting a little bit more reality-based in my training, because that's what a lot of people are looking for, reality-based training, grappling. So as an older guy, I had to start adding other tools to my toolbox in order to be able to address those concerns that I had.
Yeah, you did. And I started my martial arts training when I was 14, so a few years after you did, but I was earlier. My training started in 1970.
Wow.
So I was pre-Bruce Lee stuff. But I had a better reason for starting, but it was similar. I was getting beat up at school, so
okay.
I wanted to be the revenge of the ninjas, and I
right
in there and kick butt and take names. But in the 80s, you were a top-notch competitor. Tell us about some of the memories that you had in talking about different people that you met, some of the outstanding things that you accomplished, all that good stuff.
Well, I loved kickboxing. I did it from 1980 to 1988. I got ranked as a flyweight and a bantamweight. Did get to travel a lot as a competitor all over the United States, Canada, and France. And as a trainer for top-notch fighter Thomas Chesterfield, got to travel to even other places. My memories are a little bittersweet, Tommy. I'm humble. I never could win the big one. I fought for 2 regional titles. I fought Randy Fawcett for the Southeast title in Natchez, Mississippi. He's one of the toughest guys I've ever been in the ring with. Troy Dorsey says the same thing. Troy Dorsey says the toughest guy he ever fought was Randy Fawcett, and he beat me. I fought for the East Coast title against Vernon Mason, former world champion. I fought him twice for the East Coast title in Hampton, Virginia. He won that fight. I don't know if he really did or not, hometown. But anyway, that was another one. That was 2 regional titles. Then I fought Jerry Clark for the United States title in Gainesville, Georgia. That was for the U.S. title. I lost that one. So I felt like I reached my level of competence. I think I was a top 5, top 4 kickboxer in the bantamweight division, but I couldn't beat those other 3 guys, and that's a little bittersweet. I did win 3 state titles, Tennessee state title. I won the Georgia state title with the Joe Corley promotion in Atlanta, and Clark promoted a Jacksonville fight. Bill Clark, Jacksonville, Florida. I won the Florida state title against Jerry Clark. I did beat him once, but when I went to I just couldn't win the big one. But the state titles were exciting. Traveling to France, we fought in Elba, France. We took 8 Americans, bantamweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, all the way up to heavyweight. There were 8 of us, and we fought 8 French champions. So it was 8 against 8. It was pretty cool. I think I know we each did 5 rounds. We did 5 rounds. And got to meet Dale Fry, world lightweight champion, good friend of mine. I know you guys know Dale.
Oh yeah.
Gary Dye, top 10 welterweight. Tony Reed, top 10 welterweight. Curtis Evans, top 10 bantamweight. And that's also when I met Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Thompson. And that was great. That's an ongoing relationship that I have. So I did get to travel and meet a lot of great people. My final record was 23 wins and 6 losses. And, those 6 losses are always when I tried to step up. Yeah, did the best I could.
That's still a huge record. Like, I mean, it's not like you were 10-10. I mean, you won a lot more than you lost. That's for sure.
I got an offer to fight for the world title, Jennifer, on 2 weeks' notice. It was in Atlantic City, and it was against Felipe Garcia.
Oh, man.
He was the one of the most well-known bantamweight champions of all time. And I thought, Jennifer, at the time, I said, 2 weeks' notice in the professional fight game, this is a ploy. They find a contender and they give them a short notice and they pay you a lot of money to come in, so maybe you're not in top shape. And I said, well, I'm only 24. There'll be another opportunity to fight for the world title, and I didn't do it. I wish I'd done it. I don't know that I could have beat Felipe, but I wish I'd at least had that opportunity. I never fought for the world title.
Dang. You talking about France? That was the Panama Jack. Was that what that was?
Yes, sir. Panama Jack International Kickboxing Team. Bill McDonald put that together.
Wow. Yeah. Old names coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does stuff like that influence you in your approach to martial arts and the competing aspect of it?
I've kind of parlayed that experience, and Tommy, as you know, if you're going to kickbox, you probably need to visit a boxing gym, and I did that at an early age. I was a member of Sheriff Fate Thomas boxing team, and about 2 years ago, I had a gentleman that I've trained with all my life. He actually was my trainer when I was kickboxing, who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he did not have a lot of time left. So in order for me to train with him, we would meet every morning in my little dungeon gym and tried to get him training and working out as much as he could. Eventually, actually before he passed away, I started thinking, if I had some guys that wanted to train and box or kickbox, they could meet me down here. And so we opened the boxing gym, Champions Corner Boxing Gym, and it wasn't just 5 or 6 guys. Man, it exploded. I had no idea the interest. Everybody says boxing is dead, that the UFC and MMA is taking over. That's not true, man. There are 16, 17, 25, from about 16 to about 30. That age group, there's a lot of them out there that want to box and they want to be able to do it in a professional environment. So we've been very successful with that. So my competition through kickboxing, I think it helps me teach my traditional students what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
We don't hold our hands low like some, we hold them up, chin down, hands up. So you're not going to get your head knocked off. All the punches of boxing, we teach them in our traditional karate program. So I think that's helped a lot. But it's also now got a 4th business that I own in Champions Corner Boxing Gym. Keeps me in shape. These guys, man, I got to stay on my toes to keep up with them.
I'll bet. Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And how many do you have right now that are training in the boxing gym?
I've got that are on an agreement that they're professionally paying me. I got 84.
Before,
We have
wow.
some that are on scholarships for whatever reason. Total, we've got about 119.
That's a lot of people, and considering you only open it up. And I remember when you did that, it exploded.
Right. We were very ticked. It's separate from. I've got it's an LLC. Champions Corner Boxing is an LLC. Bushido School of Karate, or they're an S corp, so they're totally separate.
Right.
But they work hand in hand. I don't know. I know you haven't visited my facility, but it's right next door.
Oh, that's
sometimes I could take if there's nothing going on over there. I'll take my karate class over there. Take all the kids over there. We train the Tennessee State middleweight champion in boxing, Eric Draper, and sometimes he'll do a special class for the kids where he's teaching them basic boxing fundamentals. I did an adult class where the entire name of the class was how to hit hard. How to hit hard. I tell people there's 3 things you need to know in self-defense, and they're often overlooked. 1 is awareness. 2 is physical fitness. A lot of people think you learn a bunch of tricks and you're okay, even if you're not in good shape. And the 3rd is how to hit hard. And so this really fit in well with our philosophy for self-defense. A lot of times in a self-defense situation, you could hit somebody so hard, maybe they can't continue. Maybe they're knocked out. Maybe they decide they don't want to continue because they don't want any more of that.
That's right.
Maybe you render them unable to continue by damage that you've done. That way you don't have to go to the ground. The ground's hard, especially in a parking lot, and have his buddies come out and have a kickathon. So those 3 aspects, be in good shape, be aware of your surroundings, and hit hard, all fit together with my boxing program.
Yeah.
So 1980 started Bushido's School of Karate, right? And did you buy that, or how did that happen, or you started that from scratch?
The Bushido School of Karate actually opened in 1972.
Okay.
It was opened by Newton Harris, who was my first instructor. I started taking in 1973. And I guess you could say that was kind of, Jennifer, that both Mr. Harris and then eventually Mr. Bill Herzer took over. That was probably just a DBA, doing business as. They were probably just doing that out of their checkbook. So, but it was called the Bushido School of Karate. In 1980, I purchased that from Mr. Herzer and immediately became an S Corp. So that's when it became, my idea was, I saw what was coming in. I started wheels turning and said, this could maybe be a profitable thing. I immediately, at 18 years old in 1980, when I purchased the gym, I immediately moved out of home because I thought I was a rich man. Man, I could pay the rent, which was probably $125 a month. You should have seen the dump. I paid the electric bill, and I could buy the uniforms that are needed. I got this amount left over, and I moved out, and it worked. It worked. That was in 1980. So we officially became an S Corp in 1980, but it's been around since 72.
So a lot has changed. Obviously when you started, it was the Bruce Lee era. Then the Karate Kid era came along, and then Ninja Turtles, and then all the other things that have happened since the early 2000s. Like, what do you see as the times that you've seen be the most challenging, and what did you do to overcome those?
When I took over, I was amazed at it was easy to get people in the mid 70s. We did my instructor at the time, that's Bill Herzer, that a beautiful flying sidekick.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
We made these posters, okay? And we went and put them around in shopping centers, and it says free 2 weeks of karate. I think the first 3-week class we had, or the first 2 weeks, we had 60 people in there. I don't remember. I was only a kid, 15, 16 years old. I don't remember how many of those signed up. I do know one of them went on to become the North American welterweight kickboxing champion, Thomas Chesterfield. So that was nice. But this was so backwards, Jennifer. You see this number, 893-6003?
Yeah.
That's still the landline here at the karate school. We had these posters all over Murfreesboro. But I started thinking, I was 16, 17, I was helping at the school. I said, during the day, there's never anybody down here because we didn't have classes till about 4 o'clock. So that number, 896-0800, that was my home number.
Oh, wow.
And it's still my mom and dad's phone number. My dad came in the other day and saw this poster. He said, "Why's my phone number up there?" That was the way we were doing business back then. Just, it was all kind of guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
I remember back then, some things are a lot different. Some things are the same. Now you got Facebook. Back then we called it the Yellow Pages, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
that's how people, if you wanted a plumber, you went to the Yellow Pages. You didn't Google it. If you wanted a karate school, you went to the Yellow Pages. But my first instructor, or my second instructor, the gentleman I bought the school from, I'm 16 years old. I said, Mr. Herzer, we need to get in the phone book. We need to get in the phone book. Now, we're the only karate school in town, but I'm thinking one day we're not going to be, right? But Mr. Herzer's logic was, he said, Bill, we're the Bushido, starts with a B, Bushido School of Karate, so we'll always be first.
Yeah.
I said, Mr. Taylor, what if AAA martial arts comes into town? Right? But I think he finally broke down and let me, as a 17, 18-year-old, talk him into getting in the Yellow Pages. But, he was not a marketer. He loved to teach. Bless his heart. He died about 1.5 years ago. Miss that man every day. But he was an excellent instructor. He was a people person. Everybody loved him. He was much more loved than I am. He was gregarious and friendly, and everybody loved Mr. Herzer, but he was not a businessman. And I kind of took that from him and ran with it. And he taught at our school until just a few years ago. He moved to East Tennessee, but he was an integral part of our school even after I had taken over.
I know that for me at least, like when I started I always had an interest in business and in marketing. Like I was pulling books out of the library because, again, when I was a teenager, it wasn't like Google was yet a real big thing. And it wasn't that, like, YouTube did not exist at all. So I was going to the library. I was renting books on business. I was fascinated by business and making money. Dad, do you remember like the first, I don't know, like, do you think, when was the first time I was like, hey, if I'll do this job, will you pay me money? Like,
Yeah, you were probably at like 7 or 8 years old.
yeah. So, I was just fascinated by the fact that you could work and you could earn money and then you could buy whatever you wanted to buy. So I always had that fascination with that. Was that something that you mentioned, like your instructor wasn't good at business, but like you at 18, you took the initiative to buy this business, start this business, and do that. Do you think that had something to do with your success, just having that spark initially?
I do, Jennifer. And in the mid-70s, the explanation I got, I knew there were people out there doing big money in martial arts. Joe Corley,
Yeah.
Jack Scott in Cookville, David Deaton in Nashville, Tennessee. And when I would bring this up to other people in Murfreesboro, they would always say, well, you can't do that in Murfreesboro. And that's right. But do you know what I did? I visited Joe Corley. I trained down there with Asa Gordon in his gym with Jerry Trimble and Richard Jackson and Jerry Rome, even though I never sparred Jerry Rome. He's a big guy. Anyway, when I would visit and train down there, I would, Larry Black was pretty much his program director, and I'd talk with Larry and I'd watch his classes and, get just like a sponge. I'm 18, 19 years old. I visited Jack Scott in Cookville, Tennessee. Tommy, did you know Jack?
I didn't know Jack, but I knew everybody else. I trained down there with Asa and Richard Jackson and Jeff Gripper. They used to beat me to death.
Gripper, man. Gripper was so good at taking a young guy like me and teaching him. He loved to teach. But Jack Scott was a student of Dalton, Georgia.
Ben Kiker.
Yeah. Ben Kiker. And I visited Ben. So anyway, David Deaton down the road. I visited all these schools. What are they doing that we're not doing? What are they doing that we're not doing? It's kind of like when I talk to Jennifer on the phone and she keeps me in line and says, this is what we're doing. And you're not doing it. And I go, I'm 62 years old.
She knows how to talk to the old people, right?
Right.
Well, she tried to talk to me, Dad, this is what's going to work.
Right. Right. So Jennifer, when we do our phone calls and I send staff members down there to visit with y'all, they come back and kind of get off topic here, but I got to do a better job of delegating that stuff out. But anyway, I joined a lot of organizations that teach you how to run a profitable business. Learned a lot from that, and I guess I applied it pretty well because we over 50 years we've been a school. We've been pretty successful.
Yeah. What do you What do you see as the biggest difference between getting people in the door? I mean, you ran a 2-week with a flyer posted around town and got like 60 something people. I feel like I know the answer just because we've had a lot of talks, but not everybody else has heard this. So from your experience, what do you feel is the biggest difference? And what would you say to somebody that's maybe has had a school since the 80s, the 90s, whatever? I mean, it's very different in 2024 now.
Oh, and they're kind of someone that's had a school that long, but they're not growing. They're kind of,
Yeah.
well,
You've adapted. You know, when we met, it was COVID and you were wanting to jump on what the next thing was. That's when we met.
right.
And that's the thing that I loved about working with you is that that you were not just satisfied to go, well, it's been a good run. I guess we'll just ride this out. Like that's never been your philosophy.
I'm so proud of the way that my staff and I got through COVID. That, and everybody knows this, 6 weeks, they shut us down. We can't do any in-person classes. But in 1973, this kind of explains some things, Jennifer. In 1973, when I started taking karate, and this is an average. This might not be an exact number, but there's about 30 students in the school. Okay, 30 students. And man, they were some tough people too. They're only 30, but man, they could fight. And then in 1980, when I took over, there were about 30 people in the school. Might not be the exact same ones, but there were 30. Then in 1980, when I took over, 30 people in the school. And for years, I concentrated on competition, and we probably had 30, 40, 50 people in the school. The school didn't grow because we did absolutely no marketing until I finally started seeing and visiting these other schools like I was talking about and started a detailed marketing program. And you'll hear from a lot of people that I don't have money to advertise. There's so many things you can do in your school that cost absolutely no money that can bring a lot of people into your school. You have to decide, do I want to spend a lot of money on marketing and not have to invest a lot of time, or am I going to be time intensive and not spend a lot of money? And I think for someone who's not where they want to be, maybe they're not bringing in the dollars that they want to in their karate school, they need to get a little bit more proactive in lead generating events that they can do on their own in their school. Are they easy? Do they, no, they're not easy. They do take a lot of time. You got to plan, but that's how you grow your school initially, doing things that don't cost a lot of money, but everybody knows the buddy days, the board breaking days, the buddy week, the outdoor events, the self-defense. We're doing a Father's Day event. We're doing, I think, 3 Mother's Day events. And then when you start building a base, then you can start advertising in ways that are not quite as time extensive.
Yeah.
So you got a lot going on. You got 2 martial arts schools, and I think does that include your boxing academy?
We've got Bushido School of Karate North, Bushido School of Karate South, and then Champions Corner Boxing Gym. They're 3 separate entities.
Wow. Okay. So you got that going. You're running around 600-700 students through all that stuff. How do you keep up with everything and make it run smooth?
I'm blessed to have at my South location, Jorge Oseguera is my program director, who I believe you've met. He's I think twice. Thank you for having him, by the way. He's excellent. At my North location, I've got Mr. Steve Holt. He's the program director at that location. He can run the show. If I'm not here, I don't worry about that. At Champions Corner, I'm in there a little more than I would be, but I have Mr. Paul Carruthers, who's a former kickboxer that I trained. He's learning how to do a little bit more at the school. So I'm thinking, down the road, be able to hand off some of those responsibilities to him. So it's a matter of, y'all know this probably more than I do because you've got a much bigger one, but it's your team, the team that's with you and the faith that you put in them. And the training that you give them in order to not have to, everybody, I'm sure you've all read the E-Myth. So you're not working, in your business, but you're working on your business from the outside. That's a philosophy. Even at my age, I'm still trying to get better at that.
Yeah.
So what kind of, you've got obviously the karate schools, and those are traditional karate, and then you've got the boxing gym. Is it a different culture that you're creating in those? Is it still family values? Like what kind of culture are you creating? Because you have 2, they're similar because they're combat,
Right.
combat related, but they're two different types of demographics that you're bringing in. So can you walk us through that?
Demographics was the word I was going to use, Jennifer. It's, with the traditional martial arts, my average student is probably a 9 to 12-year-old boy or girl that mom and dad are bringing him in for self-control, self-discipline, focus skills, listening skills. That's your average. Now you've also got your 42-year-old man and your 3-year-old kinder kid. But that's the culture that we've got. Very family oriented. We do family programs. Saturday is family day where the 9-year-old and the 42-year-old can come in and work out together. We're very family oriented, do a lot of family events. One of our Mother's Day events is bring a guest, and they're going to have a little social event after the workout. Very family oriented, because that age group, it's usually we're addressing a mom of a child. On the boxing side, there is some crossover. I do have some 14, 15-year-old karate students who are green belt, and maybe they want to see what it's like to take it up a notch and put on headgear and gloves and, go at it. But the main demographic for the boxing gym is 16 years to probably about 30. And then the average being right there in the middle, in the mid-20s. And these are guys that would probably never have an interest in doing traditional karate. But boxing is something some of them have been just biting at the bit to try, and we've given them that opportunity by opening this gym. There are a lot of fitness gyms in the area, Title Fitness, Mayweather gyms. There's dozens of them, like 9 rounds, great fitness gyms. But we're a fighting gym. We let them spar. You don't have to. I've got us train 3 professionals: Eric Draper, Eric Bossler, and Rydell Mays. We train amateurs. Got about 12 guys, young men that compete as amateurs, and 1 old man. And then we have people that just do it for fitness. But some of them don't even want to get in the ring. But when they come, the culture in that gym is just like a boxing gym. I mean, you hit the bag, everybody's in there sweating, the clock's going off all the time. They're playing rap music. It is a very different culture. Traditional karate and the boxing are very different.
And so when are you martial arts obviously is super heavy on trying to build character and values and things like that. And then you've got the Rocky movies where, there's like the perseverance and the never going to give up. And, if you get hit, that doesn't matter. It matters how many times you get back up. So are you trying to instill values into your boxing students, or how are you going about that?
Especially the younger guys, the 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I had someone who did not fit in with our philosophy of being ethical, honest, and upright. Let him go last week. So if the 3 coaches that I have now, myself, Paul Carruthers, Rydell Mays, family men, either of those 2 men, I'd be more than happy for my 16-year-old young man to work with and be influenced by. We're not your buddy, we're not your pal, we're your coach, but we're going to be firm to you. Both my kids play football, and I like the fact that an authority figure other than mom or dad are going to be hard on my kids, so they don't melt and fall apart. In football, the culture in football is like that. My son one time was walking on the football field during a game. I think he was coming off the field, and the coach said, "You don't walk on my football field. Get out." Well, Mike get out and yelled at him. I went up to my son and I said, "Gabe, did you like when that coach yelled? Did you like that?" "No, sir." I said, "Don't walk on his football field," right? That's the mentality of a coach. I'm not your buddy. I'm your coach. But we also let these young kids know that we're there if they need to talk to us as an authority figure. They can kind of help them with issues that they're going through, because that's a tough age. That 14, 15, 16-year-old, he's probably seen some influences at high school that, maybe aren't that good. And we want to let them know that we're here to help them with that. And sometimes we'll notice things. Had a kid the other day, was sparring. He's good too. Threw up. He's overheated and ran out, and then came over to me, and I said, I almost said his name. I said, "I smell smoke on you," and he'd been smoking cigarettes. And I said, "Well, there you go. That's not going to be real good for your win. That's maybe why you got sick in your stomach." So, we're there to kind of look out for things like that and point them on the right path. But you're not going to be able to abuse things like that and be successful in a boxing gym. So, kind of works hand in hand to kind of keep these guys on the right path.
Yeah, man. So let me ask you this. What do you feel like older school owners need to do in terms of getting their staff ready to take over, so to speak. I'm not talking about selling it to them or anything like that, but kind of saying, hey, you know, I'm trying to build a legacy. I want a team around me, just like a football team, a coaches on a football team. You got your coaches who work different parts of the team, and they all come together with the head coach. They all have their separate jobs. What are you doing that's helping you push so you can work on the business
Right.
more than you work in the business?
You've got at both my locations, I have my director, different names, but I call it my program director.
Right.
And I know that eventually that program director might well become the owner of that facility. So there's a lot of things that program director is doing right now that when all the things that I do, the three things your owner does, money management, marketing, and staff development, when they start taking over those three responsibilities, they may not have time to do all this other stuff. So what I've already started doing, Tommy, is having that program director train instructors how to get set up for a belt exam, how to do some special events. So things that program director is doing right now, I'm having him train these instructors. So when he moves to the ownership, they'll be able to fill those voids. That's one thing that I'm doing. Second thing, I and Jennifer, we talk about this. I need to delegate more.
Yeah.
We did a call today where Jennifer was talking about the events that you have planned for June. And then we started about events planned for July. And we're like, well, you know, what's up with that? So after having that call this morning, I wrote down some notes, and I'm just going to delegate to have each staff member come up. And this is just easy, why not I do it for? But anyway, each staff member is going to do one event each month, and they're going to plan it on their own, and they're going to do it on their own. And it could be as easy as we're going to do a board breaking day on Wednesday at 4:00. Everybody in class, bring a buddy, and everybody's going to break a board, and then try to generate leads that way. So I know all this. I know how to do all these events. I've done them for 40 years, but I've got to get staff members planning them out front a month or two out so that they snowball effect, right? The steam builds up, more leads are generated instead of me having to do it all. So that would be the second thing. And the third thing I would do for an older school owner who's looking at maybe wanting to lean back and work not in, but on their business, or maybe they are thinking about 4 or 5 years down the road retiring, is get involved in a good, solid organization that can train your staff, whether you're there or not, right? If I get hit by a bus today, 2 weeks from today, Jennifer's still going to have a phone call with Steve Holt, Mary Kay Chisholm, Jeff Nelson, and Jorge Osguera. So that training will continue. I can't be there at every one, and I won't be there forever. But, when they purchase the business, obviously that will be their decision to continue that. But Jennifer's job is to make herself invaluable so we can't do without her, right? And yeah. I think she's going to do that. I think that's going to be where we're headed. But I think those three things, delegate, train them in layers so when he moves up, all this other stuff doesn't get left undone. An example I'm using is Mr. Holt has at my North location, has this system for belt exams. The list, the belts are out, and it takes, hour or so on the computer, and if not more. My point is, as an owner, he's not going to want to do that, and anybody can do it. He just has to train them how. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to have him train, and he already is, train Jeff Nelson how to do it. So when he's working on marketing, staff development, and money management, that's taken care of.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Awesome.
That makes sense. So, and I know it's probably hard to put this in a top 3 category, but you've had a wealth of experience in business. If you could narrow it down to 1, 2 truths that for sure, like if you're going to run a successful business, you must blank and blank. What do you think those 2 things would be for you?
Long term, you can not do this on the short end, but long term, Jennifer, honesty. And I know it sounds corny, but there's so many examples where we screw up, we overcharge somebody, and you think, they're not going to notice it. That we're supposed to cancel them on this day, this payment. But when you call that person and say, Ms. Johnson, we screwed up. We overcharged you $180, and I'm going to put a check in the mail today, and I apologize for it. Well, that cost me $180. That's why I'm saying it's a long-term thing.
Yep.
It's just being ethical. I wish I could think of some better examples, but like a kid that doesn't get a tip and should have for whatever reason, or, I've done things. I remember one time this is awful. I was supposed to be at a school to do a kids talk, and something happened and totally I didn't show up.
Yeah.
Man, I immediately drove to that school, and I didn't do it because the schedule had gone on, but apologize profusely and be honest and look somebody in the eye and say, man, I'm sorry, I messed up. I think there's not a lot of that in the world today. I think a lot of people are looking at short gain and doing the easy thing. The easy thing would be to take that money and hope they don't notice. That's one thing that I try to adhere to and train my staff to do. That's a biggie. That's what, in our 50-year existence here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, we've really got a good reputation. And I think it's because of standards that we've set like that over the years. We're not a fly-by-night, and there's a lot of them that come and go. There's 12 martial arts schools, within about a 5-mile radius right now, but 6 of them aren't going to be here in a year. We're going to be here.
Yeah. This is something that I encounter a lot when I'm working with school owners, but do you feel, and maybe this didn't happen to you, but did you ever feel any pressure like, oh, I can't be successful and make money and still be ethical or honest as a school owner? And I know you've also been working with other organizations and were a consultant/coach in there. Like, what do you say to that mindset?
Well, do you mean like the McDojo?
Yeah. Like your 7 figures is a thing that you're doing. You've got successful schools. You've been running at a high level. Like, I'm sure that some people are looking at you the same way they look at us and go, well, they must be doing it because they're cheating. They must be doing it because it's not quality. They must be doing it because of X, Y, Z. So
I think martial arts today, the average black belt that I produced today is probably better than the average black belt that I produced in 1982 because we've learned more. The boxing that we're doing is helping to be better martial artists. The grappling, if I grow and my staff grows, my students are going to grow more. So I think we could produce quality martial artists and still run professionally. Back in the day, I'd go to these conventions and somebody would say, I have been in business for 40 years and 3 people have got their black belt under me. You must be a really bad instructor. That's the way it is now. Anybody, I would almost go so far as to say anybody can get a black belt at my school, but what one person could do in 3 years, it may take somebody else 7 or 8 years. I'm not going to lower my standards. And someone that has, motor control, coordination problems, they may not be able to do it in 3 or 4 years, but there comes a point where they're going to maximize their potential, and that's okay. That's okay at that point. But I think people who talk about anybody that makes money in the martial arts as a McDojo are usually extremely close-minded. They're the type person that's saying, I've only produced 3 black belts. I've been doing karate for 80 years. What are you doing wrong? I mean, you can't reach out and train people and encourage people. I mean, there's got to be a professionalism to our sport. There's nothing wrong with being successful at the martial arts.
I think that's something, Dad and I have had lots of discussions around, just like kind of the same thing that you were saying, like we have videos of me taking my junior black belt test and I'm like embarrassed because I'm like, oh my gosh, but we've gotten so much better as instructors. We're producing better students than we were before.
A lot of, I'm a traditionalist. I do Wado-Ryu karate. I trained in I got a picture I'm looking at right now. 1975, I trained with Hironori Utsuka, the original, born in 1892, died in 1982. The old man, I trained with him. I trained with his son who became the Grand Master. I'm a traditionalist, but I'm not going to pigeonhole myself and say that's all I can do and that's all I'm ever going to do. And, a lot of karate schools and organizations, anything outside their sphere is bad. Man, I can learn from anybody. I can learn from boxers, kickboxers. I'm not a real good grappler. I wrestled in high school. I dabble in jiu-jitsu, but I'm not like on the level you guys are. I can learn from anybody. And if you don't have that mindset, you're digging a hole. You're digging a hole because, things are changing too fast. And, when you look at UFC and MMA and people see what works and what doesn't work, you got to be in that laboratory or you're going to be left on the curb.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely right. And it's amazing to me that a lot of people who are in the traditional aspect of the arts, which I came up in also, fortunately for me, I moved away from that because I could see, I remember in the 70s seeing Bill Wallace come to a karate tournament in Charleston where I was living at the time. And just, I was amazed by this guy. I mean, he was just competing and he was just blistering everybody. His feet were so fast you couldn't know. What? And so that piqued my interest more and more from the traditional side to more of the contemporary. And then I moved out of Charleston and moved to Greenville. Me and Ray Thompson moved to Greenville to train with Sam Chow. And we hit the tournament circuit and did a lot of stuff up there. And I moved to Atlanta to train with Joe Corley down there with Asa Gordon and in the basement and in the dungeon down there. Had a few smoker fights in that dungeon. And I actually, you talked about Jerry Trimble. I fought Jerry Trimble and I think it was Columbia. And I did real good against him until he knocked me out.
Trimble. Man, it ought to be illegal to move your feet the way he used to move those feet.
And yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
His spinning heel knockout of Tony Rosser. I don't know if you've seen that.
I saw it up close.
Oh, yeah. Trimble. He's a good man too. I love him. He's from Kentucky.
Yeah.
He was born in Kentucky.
Oh,
good man. Tommy,
you
were talking about the traditional part.
Right.
I'm trying to have the best of both worlds. We do the boxing, the kickboxing, the grappling, all that, but we have a core Wado-Ryu. We still, the master still comes here. Our belt system, I still have a group that I'm on the board of directors that's a sanctioning group, the United States Eastern Wado-Ryu Karate Do Federation. So we still have that traditionalism, and I think there's great value in that. But also I learned something the other day reading a book on jiu-jitsu. There's something called Koryu, and I may be pronouncing it wrong, but I think it's Koryu.
Yeah.
Koryu. And it's talking about sometimes you do things just to preserve that traditionalism, but maybe it's not street effective, but there's still value in it. Like the book I was reading, they use kendo as an example, where you put on the shinai and smack each other in the head. Well, there's some katas we teach where you hold your hands real low, and that was supposed to, like you're holding a sword, so there's a reason for it. And if you know it and you address it and you bring that to the attention of your students, the reason we do this is that we're preserving the old traditions of, but don't do that in street fight. If you address it, I think there's value in it, and they appreciate you being upfront with them. You don't want to teach somebody something that's going to get them killed, and not act like this is the way it's the way they did it in 1834 and still do it today. You got to be smart enough to be real with them. Be honest with them. We're doing, these moves because it preserves the Wado-Ryu Kihan Kata. Yeah. But don't try that in a back alley. You're learning. There's value in it. You're learning. We call it tazabaki, hip shifting or whatever. Yeah. But it's not straight up street fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot to be brought over from the traditional. And through the kata, and you can see the moves in there. And let me ask you this: what's next? What's next for you? Any big plans? Any goals for the future that you feel like you need to do?
I've got. I have a real estate holding company that owns all my buildings as well as some residential property. And I go to real estate seminars, and one of them will say, borrow against all your property and buy more. And the other guy will say, pay off all your property to reduce risk. I listen to this guy. So my next thing is I want to get, and I've already got quite a few of them. I got a lot of equity, but I'm going to continue trying to get properties paid off. So I got zero, I got all that tightened up and everything's, when things go haywire, you don't want to have a mountain of debt. Things go haywire, you got everything paid for, you're safe. So I really love real estate investing. I can see me in the next 3 to 5 years stepping out. And you know what, Tommy? Then I could just come in and teach when I want to teach and kind of hand off some of the other things to very high quality people that can hopefully, one, reap the benefits that I've had through the martial arts, and two, do it a lot better than I did. Take us to the next level. That's what Jennifer's helping us do.
Yeah, that's cool. So here's my suggestion. Don't wait 3 to 5 years. If you start with developing your plan now,
Right.
develop your plan and put it in place and start.
Yeah, I'm doing like the E-Myth. I'm writing things down, systems.
Yeah.
I'm writing down the system because my program directors don't know what I have to do 6 months before a black belt exam. So I'm writing it. I can't go get it, but I can't remember. That was one system I wrote down. I can't remember some of the others, but just things that I have taken for granted that I need to be able to hand off to these program directors. So they go, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on one. And Jennifer suggested letting them, program directors, lead staff meetings. Things like that to kind of pass the baton, so to speak. But honestly, I still like what I do. I enjoy it. I like coming in, working out early in the morning, and then about 10 o'clock coming in and addressing the business side of things. So it's a journey that I'm enjoying.
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, I really appreciate you being on with us today, Mr. Taylor. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, where's the best place that they can find you or get in touch with you?
I'll give you 2 ways. They can call me at 615-483-4075. Just ask for Bill Taylor, or email is bushido96@aol.com. Don't make fun of the AOL. Bushido is BUSHIDO. Martial artists probably know this, but BUSHIDO 96@aol.com.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for being here. It was really an amazing session, getting a chance to talk to you, break apart all this rich history, martial arts, business. These are things we really get excited about. So thanks again. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. Tommy, it's good to see you. And Jennifer, thank you so much for both of you. One, helping us every 2 weeks, keep our school, everybody needs a kick in the butt sometimes. And if you don't put yourself in a situation where somebody's going to hold you accountable, you're just going to flounder around. So thank you for that. Also, thank you for letting Mr. Oseguera come and visit. He always comes by and just, whoa, it's just great. And might very well either myself or Mr. Holt take a visit to see you guys, because y'all are doing some amazing things, and I appreciate it.
You need to come see the circus.
I know. I do. And, I've got a 16 and an 18-year-old. We've got graduations and, college coming up. And every time something comes up, I say, Jennifer, let's go to Augusta, Georgia. And we got really close one time because she does triathlons. And there was one in Augusta, and we were going to try to make that work. But, man, if I can't be there, I want to send somebody that can bring me back some information. But I do hope to make it as well, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Man.
All right. Well, thanks again. All right, you guys. We'll see you next time on the 7 Figure Secrets podcast.